Dan, I think we wanted to start by you talking about this thing that Timothy gave us yesterday.
Yeah, I was just looking at the concepts that Tim used to structure the entire 2 days. I said, that's great. But the one thing I want to tell you is that what I've observed in myself and working with entrepreneurs is that it's how you measure your life that really makes a difference. And the one thing that's really built into the human brain is that we're measurers. And they know that probably within a couple of days, a newborn baby has immediately knows the distinction between its mother and any other shapes that there are in the vicinity. So right from the very start, we measure things because it's crucial to learning. We have to know the difference between things, and we have to know, things that are good for us, things that aren't bad for us, and this comes from measuring. And so whether you feel good about your life or you don't feel good about your life, regardless of how it looks from the outside. Babs and I, from the very beginning, went for, by comparison, super successful entrepreneurs. Okay, so, I think that from an income standpoint, just to qualify for the program, you're not only in the top 1% of the world, but you'll probably be in the top 1/10 of 1%, And so the other thing is that these are outliers. These people are all outliers. There's nothing about their where they were born, who they were born to that really explains what they've done with their lives. They're kind of freaks, And actually, the biggest inequality in the U.S. is not between families. The biggest inequality in the U.S. is actually within families. There's one person in the family that goes through the roof, okay? And so there's a lot of inequality that's involved with superstar entrepreneurs. And I should say that about halfway through the last project, the Gap in the Gain book, I said, Ben, we need a target reader. We have to have a target reader, okay, so that we're not talking to everybody in the world. We're just talking to one reader. So we did this, and we talked about it, and I said, Tucker Max is our target reader. And we talked about Tucker Max. Came the day he was born, he was setting goals. Total goal setter. You don't teach Tucker anything about goal setting. You don't teach Tucker anything about achievement. He had 4 New York Times bestseller books before he was 30 years old. One of them had been made into a movie. Went to Duke, got his law degree in publishing law. Never went to class once while he was at Duke to get his law degree, and they passed a law in the United States after that no law student can get their law degree without going to class. Okay? And I've met him, and you've met him, and I said, God, talented guy, but you could never bring him home to polite company. I mean, he had one word that he used about once out of every 5 words, that I just couldn't have that being said over and over again in polite company. So I said, Tucker just has everything to be a super achiever. He just missed all the classes on being happy. So we talked about this, and then we talked to Tucker, and so Ben says, do you think that's really true? And I said, well, I'll just write him an email, and I just wrote the whole thing. And Tucker came back, he said, this is so, bad word, true, you can't believe it. bad word. So the whole point about it is that you can be successful by everybody else's standards. In other words, that you can be a super achiever and not have any of that experience yourself for your entire life. For your entire life. and it's because you're measuring wrong. So that's really what we're talking. We're just going to show you that there's only two ways of measuring what you're doing in life, and it's a switch in your brain. And for some reason, it got switched one way if you're not happy, and you can switch it back, and that switch can happen in a matter of hours. Okay, so I have about 20,000 entrepreneurs who kind of got that. I mean, not all of them get it. I mean, some people are really committed to their unhappiness, and no, and I mean, humans are strange. You never know what they're going to be committed to. But anyway, so Ben, your take on that? On this, because Ben chooses the books. So Ben not only writes the books, but he gets to, he chooses, because Ben has a better sense of the major market, book market than I do, and therefore whatever book, whatever idea we work on next, it's Ben's job to pick the next one.
Yeah, so just to give a little bit of context, and then in a minute I'll have Gina or Rakim or whoever share kind of the core diagram, but when I first read The Gap in the Gain, it was Dan's little book, probably 2018. And this was before Dan and I actually fully established a collaboration. It was very clear to me this single framework, if applied, can basically, it essentially applies all of the best of all the research in psychology that I've studied as far as positive psychology and things like that. And so that was actually the book that I was more interested in writing even than Who Not How, but strategically Who Not How was the best book to write, and it really is a core strategic coach concept. And Dan and I were thinking, so the three books that immediately I wanted to write with Dan were Who Not How, The Gap and the Gain, and 10x is easier than 2x. And Dan and I wasn't sure which book to do after Who Not How, 10x is easier than 2x, or The Gap and the Gain. And so Dan and I had conversations, and we thought there's really no use in teaching entrepreneurs how to maximize their growth and to go 10x, 10x, 10x if they're going to stay in the gap the whole way. And so that's why we did Gap and Gain here. 10x is easier than 2x will come out next year. But just as a mindset model, and I'll let Dan explain his structure in a quick second, you're never going to feel successful if you're in the gap. It does not matter how successful you actually are. Your current situation is not what changes. What we're going to help you understand is how to relook at your current situation so that you're always in the gain. You're always, as Dan just described, you're always actually the master. If you're in the gap, you're never the master because you're making your ideal in the future, the person you hope to become, an unreachable target that you're always chasing, and that's an endless path to nowhere. So how about we share the screen, Gina or Rakim? Show the diagram, and then Dan, we really only have probably like 15 more minutes, and then we'll do a Q&A. So how about you just basically explain, and a lot of these people have actually already read The Gap and the Gain, a lot of them are core students of yours, but maybe just from your standpoint, share what you want them to know.
Yeah. So the thing is that I show this to people, and I said, these two sides of this diagram are going to look very similar. So I'm going to go through the gap.
You can go back to just making it full screen.
Yeah, so we're going to go through the gap first. And the gap works this way, that we have a construct in the human brain which is called an ideal, okay? And the reason we have that is because one of the fundamental things we have to come to grips with is time, okay? And we have another model, what I call a mental construct in our brain, which deals with space. And we've created a construct there called the horizon line, so that when you're outside, you have a reference point where the sky meets the ground. And that allows you to actually pick a point between where you are and the horizon, so that you can actually measure a goal. And for some reason, we don't get really off track about this, that most children in a very short period of time get the horizon right, that it's not real. The horizon is not real. It's just a reference point, and they don't judge themselves by not reaching the horizon. They're quite comfortable, but with the ideal, they don't. And I would say that the majority of human beings never adjust to this because they've been told, great people achieve their ideals. achieve their ideals. But the ideal is just a mental construct that allows us to chunk off a period of time in our brain and then actually create an achievement, which we call a goal, and actually move towards the goal and achieve the goal. And so both sides do exactly what I've said. So you do that on the gap side and you do this on the gain side. Okay, so it's exactly identical, and all 8 billion, I think that's the current population, all 8 billion human beings are dealing with this every day. And I should say here that my greatest mastery that has come in relationship to the gap is that I only do it 4 or 5 times a day.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video, and I want to let you know that I have a new book that's come out, and if you'd like to get it absolutely free, there's a link below in the description, or you can wait till the end of this video, or you can simply go to joesfreebook.com and you can get a copy there.
Okay, after 25 years of getting better at this, I only now do it 4 or 5 times a day, okay, where I judge myself against an ideal. Okay, so the thing I want to say this, it's very natural to do this, and the only question is that you want to be aware that you're doing it, okay, because you'll immediately feel it as a tightness, your muscles will tighten up, you'll feel a sense of urgency, you'll feel a sense of scarcity in your mind. You'll immediately feel that you're in the gap. And so what the person does is that they achieve their goal, and then they measure against the ideal, and nothing's changed. The ideal is further.
They're always here wanting to be there.
They're always here wanting to be there. And so other people see their achievement, what they've actually done, but they don't see it because they bounced it against the ideal. Okay, and they get unhappy, they're dissatisfied, they feel disappointed, and actually some people can go into a permanent state of depression for this. Okay, and so the whole thing is that every individual, and we're all on our own with this, there isn't anybody who can help us with this. You just got to get what the true measurement is. And so the gain looks exactly the same. You have the ideal, and the ideals are important. Ideals are very important because they throw illumination on our future. And the other thing is they motivate us, and when times are really tough, it's our ideals that actually allow us to go through very difficult times, as many people have done over the last 2 years. Okay, and you have to go through that, but they're not for measurement. So on the gain side, you have the ideal, you see the goal, you start, and you have an achievement, and then instead of measuring against the ideal, you turn around and measure where you started. And every time you measure where you started, you feel good, because you've made progress. May not have been all the progress that your ideal said you were going to make, but you always feel progress. So what I notice is that you become very, very masterful of your own progress. And so I would like to add to Tim's structure here is that the real master that you want to follow is the master that's based on measuring your progress backwards. And every day you measure your progress backwards, you feel more masterful about your future. Okay, so.
Yeah. One thing I will say, and this is something we discussed in the audiobook, by the way, and some of you have probably already listened to it, the audiobook has about 2.5 hours of interviews between me and Dan. One crucial thing to realize, and this is something we talked about, is you're not either in the gap or the gain. It's a commitment you have to make. If you want to stay in the gap and continue to measure yourself and other people against unreachable ideals, which are constantly moving and changing like the horizon, you're making happiness and success impossible for you, your team, everyone around you. And just as an example, personal for me, and I go in the gap, obviously, about myself regularly, and I can tell quickly when I go into the gap now because I can feel the physiology and just the depression of why am I not where I could be or should be, or why did I do that incorrectly? Like, you know, whenever you start measuring yourself or your situation against what you thought it ideally could have been, you start to feel like a loser no matter what you've done. But I've caught myself, you know, especially with our older 3 kids, shifting from gap to gain. And I think this is very important with kids. If you're always measuring them against where you think that they could be or should be, you've made success an impossible adventure for them. And with especially my oldest son, we got him as a foster kid. We got him out of a group home when he was 7 years old. And I remember all three of those kids were so far behind in school. He was about 2 years behind in school. And I remember sitting with him and trying to teach him how to read for hours and hours and hours. And it's interesting because as he moves forward and as I move forward, my ideals continue to change for him. And he's now 14, very good reader, just brilliant in so many things. But if I'm constantly measuring him against my moving ideals for him, he gets no experience of his own progress. If I can help him see who he is right now against where he was a year ago or back when we were working on his reading, he can start to measure himself accurately, which is not against my ideals, but against his own progress. And so this is a fundamental mindset for yourself, for teams, for the people you're around. And this is something that Dan and I have talked about, but something he's found, and you can talk to it, but I think one thing that I really want to move to in a second, but one of the things he's found is that once an entrepreneur actually gets this, and they start to help see their family or their team in the gain, sometimes it takes some time to overcome the psychological damage that was imposed by constantly putting the loved ones in the gap. And so that's not to put pressure, but the gain is where you can start to get healing, and it really is, it's very good. One thing I just wanted to maybe, and you can go wherever you want, Dan, but the thing that I think is helpful is kind of just helping people realize that the past is only theirs to decide, that there's no value in beating up your former self, no value in, as an example, if you didn't live the perfect day, if I didn't achieve all my goals today, and now I'm in the gap because I was a failure. Maybe just talk about that you're the owner of your own experience, your experiences aren't the owner of you. I don't know or you can go wherever you want at this point, Dan.
Yeah, I think I'll follow your directions and go wherever I want.
Exactly. Hey, you get. I'm going to go in the gap on that one.
I just want to tell you, sometimes the stories are the things. So I had this client, brilliant guy, probably 10 years in coach, and he had gone to medical school and done everything except become a doctor, and he just at a certain point didn't want to become a doctor, but he had valuable skills going through medical school, and he went into the insurance industry and created a company that was called Second Opinion. And it was having to do with the insurance underwriting for really wealthy people. Okay, and it's a real problem, as we have Susan here, and they deal at the top of the world market in terms of wealthy people getting life insurance. And one of the problems with the life insurance industry is the doctors who do the rating are mediocre doctors who follow strictly, it's not based on wisdom, it's not based on knowledge, it's not based on experience. They have checklists, and you go through the checklist and do it. So what this person, his name's David, what David did is that he would bring in top-notch specialists, medical specialists to the insurance company, and he says, we want a second opinion on this. And we're saying the way the doctor said is that he just applied a standard rule to something, but it doesn't take into account what the person's actual situation is. And in about 80% of the cases, he would get a reversal and the person would get rated. And then, and so the insurance agent then would get paid, and they would get paid part of it, And so that was his business, and he was tremendously good at it, and many of you will deal with this situation, in the future. So anyway, he was telling us a story because he came into the workshop and he learned the gap just as we're doing this. This is 25 years ago. And the next quarter he came back, and he was really, really kind of upset about something, and he told me, he said, after I saw this, he says, I visited with my father, and everybody's dead. I don't have siblings. My father is there, and we were sitting there at dinner, and my father was just saying, what were you thinking? What were you thinking? And David says, what was I thinking about what, Dad? He said, you went through 4 years of high school, and you got 39 A's and 1 B. what were you thinking? Why couldn't you just work a little harder and get 40? This is 25 years after he graduated from high school. So for 25 years, his father is kvetching. Is that the right use? Yes. Anyway, kvetching over the fact that his son could have been 40 A's and he only got 39 A's. 39 A's. And I mean, it was let's say it was a strained rest of the conversation and evening. But he's going home and he has to pull off to the side of the road, and he realized that what his father had just done to him, he was doing to his daughter. And it's a killer, I'll tell you, it's an absolute killer. That, you know, and I've seen it over and over again, you know. And it's funny, Richard Rossi with his thing. The reason why what Richard is talking about is really extraordinary is because we've never actually had a healthcare system. We're only for the first time now are we having a healthcare system. Up until now, it's been a disease management system, okay? And you know it because when you get your reports back, if you get a negative report back, it means they're not going to make any money. I'll say, oh, the reports are negative, this is negative, this is negative. Okay, so what should be really positive for you is actually negative because they're not going to make any money on any of your diseases. And that's the entire healthcare system. I mean, how many of you experience that? And the doctor says, yeah, it looks pretty good, this looks pretty good, this looks pretty good, yeah. Wish I could find something to charge you for. Rather than getting paid for, wow, another quarter and you're healthier than you've ever been. Yeah, so the healthcare would be a conversation about health, not what's wrong with you. But the big thing is that we live in a highly visual world right now, and we can talk and we're getting, you know, teenagers today, especially right during the period when they've switched off their parents. You know, I mean, it's around 10 or 11 years old. You want to be a hero to your kids before 10 because at 10 they switch to peers as their judgment, so they start having sideways communication. But now it's enabled with social media. Now it's you know, and it's all the visual signs now, and they're going through their most vulnerable period. There's hormone change, and now they have to develop all sorts of social skills, and they're being presented with images about what they should look like and how successful they should be at 10, 11 years old. And they've got this extreme tendency to be judging themselves by the ideal, okay? And, you know, it's a real problem, and we live in a highly visual, and visual images are much faster to imprint our brains than any other image coming from the outside. And so but it's a human thing. It's every human being has to deal with this, okay? And you have to come to grips with it. So if you can master this anytime that you feel yourself really feeling uptight about something you're doing and you're starting to judge yourself, you're in the gap, and you say, okay, where did this start? And the moment you go back to where this started, you said, oh, I'm further ahead than I thought. And immediately the pressure goes away. And so when I say I do it 4 or 5 times a day, I only stay with it for about a minute, and I immediately catch myself. It's like sailing, you know. I'm not on the straight line, I'm just tacking back and forth between it. I was divorced and bankrupt on the same day in August of 1978. Divorced in the morning, got to keep my credit card for lunch. People are very considerate when you've been divorced and bankrupt on the same day. They don't bother you. They just give you a massive amount of privacy. Take as long as you want. Take as long as you want. And I realized that the reason for both was that I wasn't telling myself what I really wanted. I was expecting other people to kind of indicate to me what my goals should be and what my achievements should be. And so, but one of the things I noticed is that I was asking permission of other people about whether I was doing a really good job. And as long as I did that, I was always downplaying myself, actually criticizing myself. And so that's what I've been through. I mean, I'm not going to go through the whole history. But during that period, I started coaching really, really top-notch entrepreneurs. And I just noticed as a coach that individuals who should have every reason in the world to feel proud about themselves and happy about their results weren't. And I had one in particular, he was a movie maker and really superb at his skills. And one day, everybody else, I could get them to say, yeah, that was a good quarter. I'm surprised, now that I think about it, it was really not him. He would never say it. And that diagram that you see up on the screen immediately came to me. When I get really pissed off, I do diagrams. And that diagram popped out, the one you saw there, and I said, this is what you're doing. And everybody in the room except him got it, and he didn't last very long. He was with us another 6 months. And but I began to see that for super high achievers who are outliers, you have to become master of your own measurement. You have to declare total ownership of nobody gets to say how you're doing. You're the only person who gets to say how you're doing, and you got to measure backwards. If you measure forwards, you're going to be very, very unhappy. And it's chronic, and then people develop all sorts of ways of coping with their unhappiness. Great thing that Joe said to me about 2 years ago, Joe Polish. He said, the biggest problem with addictions is that people think it's a problem. Addictions are actually a solution. There's something a lot worse that you're doing the addiction. He says, until you understand that addictions are a solution, you'll never solve you'll never get to the real problem. The real problem is this negative, lifetime, constant measurement of yourself as not achieving your ideals. That's why you're drinking, that's why you're doing dangerous activity, that's why you're gambling, that's why you're doing, because you can't win this game that goes on in your head every 24 hours. And Ben, what I love about Ben, among anything, is that if you subtract his age from me, he still hasn't been born. Right? You still have about another 10, 11. But I really love the partnership with them. But one of the big things is Ben's got all the psychological models that support what we're doing here. That's one thing. And that's not my game. I mean, I would never spend the time to do it. And, but this is really, you've gone down the checklist of all the things that kind of explain this unhappiness, and this diagram really, really does well.
It's massive.
It's not perfect. It's not perfect. There's a few things that it doesn't.
No, I think it's a great concept, and we'll open this up to Q&A in just a quick second. But I think one thing just that I wanted to share, last thought for me, and you guys can entertain any questions you want, but. One thing I will say is it is fun working with Dan simply because he does let the who do the how. I get to decide literally what the book is, how it's going to be. He gives me feedback, Babs gives me feedback, but ultimately the book is the book that I created. And I really enjoy who, not how collaboration, and it is just a beautiful experience. I will say one of the immediate thoughts that we get regularly of, okay, if I'm going to start measuring myself backwards and being in the gain and actually enjoying my life and actually enjoying my progress, isn't that going to blunt my ambition? Because being in the gap is the reason I'm so successful in the first place. I'm always trying to get to the next place, and it is a false idea. Me being in the gain for myself and actually appreciating my progress hasn't slowed my ambition. It's actually blunted my worry about what anyone else thinks about my progress. I get to take ownership over my own measurements, and that's exactly what Dan said. You have to take ownership of your measurements. None of your opinions of my progress matters to me. Literally, the only person whose opinion of my progress matters to me should be myself. And if I'm in the gap, I'm continuously devaluing my own experiences, devaluing my own progress, beating up my former self because I could have been better or should have been better. And so what it blunts is the noise outside of you, and it allows you then to become a more unique individual. Because now that I'm measuring myself backwards rather than against social media ideals or against where I wish I could be, now I can actually see my own progress, enjoy it, think about it, and then start to decide the progress that matters to me, the progress that I want, not the progress that I think I should need or that anyone else thinks that I should have. So it really then allows you to play your own game, enjoy your own game, become the more unique individual that you actually are. And it doesn't stop you from having deeper connections with other people. It just simply allows you to determine for yourself what your own life means for yourself. Mm-hmm. So, anything else you want to say before we open it up?
No, I think, I think, and this is, I would say this is that this relates to everything that goes on in society, and think about political ideals. That people born in the freest country that's ever existed thinks that the country's a disaster because it doesn't meet their ideals.
We have a very gap culture about America right now.
Yeah, and it's very funny, the founding fathers, with one exception, at the end of their lives thought that what they had created failed. Washington felt that way, Jefferson felt that way. The only one who didn't is Madison, who actually created the blueprint. And at the end of his life, and they all lived a long time, by the way, the average lifespan of the 7 or 8 people who are considered the founding fathers is roughly 81 at a time when people died. The lifespan was 35 or 40. Hamilton died real early because he chose the wrong hobby. Dueling, it's not it. Washington died the earliest. He died a year after he was president at 67. But all the others, Jefferson, Madison, Adams, Franklin is one of the things. They average age around 83, 84. It was something really big. But Madison said, he says, they're just unhappy because the people that they see coming to the United States don't look like them. And they're snooty about the people who are coming to the United States. And he says, we got a great system here. It stops, it makes government almost impossible, which allows other people just to get on with useful things in their life. And he says, no, this is a good system. It'll do great. And so the whole point is that the smartest people in the world can be the people most caught up in the gap. The most highly educated people in the world the tendency is that they'll be the big gappers, okay? Because they start judging people around them and start judging what's going on around them by impossibly high ideals. And I just see it. I just see it everywhere. I mean, this is pretty, I mean, it's really, really interesting. It just deprives you of the great freedoms that are really available, greatest freedoms that humans have ever experienced. We're at the healthiest that humans have ever been. Poverty levels are dropping, really, really rapidly around the world and everything like that. And it's a terrible world and everything like that, but it has nothing to do with actual measurements. It just has to do with measuring what they see against their ideal of what things should be.
So as everybody knows, the world has drastically changed over the last 2-3 years. We will never go back to the normal, and business is not as usual. There is a war. And it's not the war in Ukraine or a war on drugs, but there's a war on consciousness. And the next step in this war is a global recession. And we're on the brink of it today. How do I know this? Well, besides going down deep rabbit holes myself, over the last 5 years, I've been invited to different groups of power and influence known as secret societies, and have gotten a firsthand look at how money and power is accumulated and influenced at the highest levels. The key players are not the politicians and the billionaires, but the shadow organizations who control them. What's going on in plain sight is that a deeply entrenched global power system is doing everything it can to preserve and expand its control and power through big tech and big finance. During the pandemic, this foundation was laid out for the next phase of this plan. Between January 20th and January 2020 and November 2021, 4 central banks pumped $9 trillion under the story of stabilizing the economy. 9 trillion. Just to give you an idea how much 9 trillion is. So just 1 trillion, if you were to stack $100 bills for just 1 trillion, you would be twice as high as the International Space Station. So 9 trillion would be 9 times higher than that. So what really happened with all of this money? Well, in the news, we saw stories about historic levels of unemployment, underemployment, financial insecurity, yet we saw the largest wealth transfer in modern history. In the US alone, there's $2.1 trillion for billionaires that amassed more wealth. And secretly, healthcare professionals and experts like this guy became the largest landowner in the United States. The deck is stacked, and now we're ready for this recession, or are we? Now, knowing that the next move in this war is a global recession, what can you do? Well, over the last 2 years, I've been putting together what I call the New Millionaire's Playbook, a guide on how to win this war and create a life of freedom, sovereignty, and abundance, and help redefine millionaire as someone who positively impacts 1 million lives. Now, in this 10 minutes, I won't be able to go through the entire playbook, but what I'm going to do is share the 4 keys that will help you unlock this beautiful future that we actually have the opportunity to co-create. Key number 1 is resilience. You need to protect your wealth. As an example, inflation, as most of you may know, is at its highest it's ever been since 1981. That means that it's at 8.6%. That means that if you are not earning at least 8.6% return on your capital right now, you're actually losing money. Most of us know that the banks aren't our friends, and they certainly don't have our best interest at heart. So the question becomes, how do we create a life and reality that isn't dependent on this broken system? So here's some of the things that I'm doing. For one, I'm diversifying my liquid and illiquid assets based on what's accessible and useful to me and my family. I want to be prepared for the worst case scenario that either a real or a false flag cyber attack may take down the grid. Again, I'm not a doomsdayer, as most of you guys know. I'm an eternal optimist, and we'll get more into this thinking shortly. But I believe in minimizing the downside when there's a clear and present risk. Here are just a few of the ways that I am diversifying and mitigating risk, and you can too.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video, and I want to let you know that I have a new book that's come out, and if you'd like to get it absolutely free, there's a link below in the description, or you can wait till the end of this video, or you can simply go to joesfreebook.com and you can get a copy there.
Precious metals, particularly gold. Precious metals are an excellent investment because they historically beat inflation. While it's a slower and longer investment strategy, they are also a good form of security to preserve your wealth. So what you want to do is have some gold in an insured vault, and have small denominations at home, because worst case scenario, we might actually have to transact in gold coins if things do go crazy, which I wouldn't rule out these days. Next is investing in regenerative land and real estate. Land is something that you can't just keep printing. The government will keep printing money, but you can't keep printing land. And so one of the things that we're doing is looking at regenerative land projects that we can invest in and actually be able to grow food and feed off of the land if we need to. Self-sufficiency. While this doesn't directly affect our financial portfolios, I see investing in self-sufficiency as one of the most important investments of our time. I want to be prepared for the worst case scenario, like I said. So I'm looking at energy through solar, direct water source, permaculture to grow our own food. And I sound like a crazy prepper, but we're actually storing a year's worth of non-perishable foods so that we could survive if things go crazy. And I'm also playing volatility in the cryptocurrency markets while mitigating risk. If some of you may remember, a couple of years ago, I did a talk at GN called Get in the Game, where I shared some of the secrets of how I was using trading bots to generate a profit in crypto. As a matter of fact, I went to my dear friend Jason Fladlien and said, "Hey, have you heard of this?" And he politely shrugged me off. And then a few months ago, he has the biggest internet launch in history and makes $58 million doing what? You guessed it, using crypto trading bots to generate substantial profits. I'm just bugging you, Jason. I love you, and I'm so grateful for your friendship. I've since been investing in a company and product called Sigma that has been a secret weapon for me inside of crypto and blockchain. It has been generating up to 1% a week in yield, despite the massive downturn in the markets, and will produce an annual return that will be greater than the rate of inflation. Key number 2 is transformation and using Web3 as a portal for change. As a lot of you may know, Web3 organizations are on the rise and are able to solve unique global challenges that have not yet been addressed. And to simply understand Web3, we must first quickly look at Web 1 and Web 2. Web 1 was the basic HTML, the first iteration of the internet, web crawler search engines, basically read-only. Web 2 has been everything from 2005 to present day, social media, mobile access, really having a more interconnected communication system. And then Web 3 is the new way of money, power, and also where the metaverse is being built and able to process complex information through concepts like the Internet of Things. I won't go too deep down that today. And then decentralization is an aspect of this shifting of power, because it's not going to be a centralized power anymore. It'll be actually decentralized power, which is spreading power and distributing it back to the people. So what does this have to do with the talk that I'm giving today? Well, with decentralized power comes the possibility of redistributing it and not repeating the same patterns that we have in the past. The past system was designed with unconscious and misaligned incentive structures. The new system will allow us to move from win-lose dynamics to omni-win dynamics. And some of you may have heard of buzzwords like DAOs, which are decentralized autonomous organizations, and they will be paramount for this paradigm shift. And so we have a unique opportunity to be builders of Web3 and truly ensure it works for all. What am I doing here? Well, one of the things that I've realized as a venture capitalist is that especially during a recession, the best place to deploy capital is into mission-driven entrepreneurs who are actually solving real problems. As most of you know by firsthand experience, entrepreneurs are the most resilient SOBs alive. That's all of you included. And we're wired to weather the storm and find unconventional ways to win, especially when it is for a deeper mission. Right now, the entrepreneurs I'm most interested in supporting and bringing to the forefront are actually to the conversation are women. Why? Because I'm an investor and I look at the numbers. And just in the US, 40% of business are women owned, yet just 2% of VC funding goes to women founders. And 4.9% of all VC deals were women-led businesses. And McKinsey found that companies with the most women in executive positions actually deliver share performance and profits nearly 50% higher than companies with the fewest women. But it's not just about profit. Study after study shows that women leaders are more likely to drive engaged, happy, inclusive, and productive teams. They're also more likely to be role models for the change that they seek. Key number 3, the inner revolution. Focus on MEPS well-being. What is MEPS? It's your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being. Often we ignore these vital parts of ourselves for an illusion of productivity and overworking. When was the last time you took a week off to focus entirely on your MEPS well-being? No phone, no email, no tech. If you haven't done it in the last 6 months, put it in your schedule before you leave Genius Meeting. This is the greatest investment you can make. So what am I doing? Well, for the days that I can't focus direct energy on all areas of my MEPS well-being, I found the best technologies that help me do so. Some of the products that have majorly enhanced my life and well-being over the last 2 years are the Aura Ring, which a lot of you are familiar with, Trip, which is a VR app that helps me move from a sympathetic to a parasympathetic nervous system, and also a new product and company that I've invested in called Vessel, which gives you your biomarkers when you simply pee on this strip and then you scan it and it'll tell you all your biomarkers. It's pretty next level. So why is this important in the context of the global power system and the war on consciousness? Because big media is being used to wage coordinated campaigns that fuel division, comparison, outrage, and disharmony for our nervous system. The only antidote to this external control over your biology is to claim direct responsibility for it, which brings me to the last key: power, reclaim control over self. As I mentioned earlier, it's not billionaires or politicians who necessarily rule the world. To see how we are being controlled, we have to look at the many power systems that start at the top, which are behind the scenes. Those at the top of the power and control system use fear and the power to attain their means, and it's trickle down to the masses. And when we're in a state of fear, we don't make good decisions. We operate from a sympathetic nervous system and constantly active, and we're not as open and receptive to love. And what am I doing here? The antidote I've found to being taken over by fear actually comes from this really powerful book that I recommend everybody read if they haven't. It's called The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. One of the viewpoints that I learned through here is this distinction between life is happening to me when we're in victim mode to life is happening through me, where we understand that we're an active participant in the unfolding of the universe. And when we're able to come from this place, we're able to co-create the reality we wish to have before our eyes. Simple exercise you can practice around this is think of a situation in your business or life that feels out of your control and not the way that you would like it to be. And then just answer this question. If life is happening through me, what is this situation asking me to do? So to conclude, the 4 keys are 1, build resilience, 2, invest in transformation, 3, focus on the inner revolution, and 4, reclaim your power.
Today, I'm going to share with you 5 ways my dad lived his life that can help you live an even better one. The first way my dad lived his life is my dad would hustle. So I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and we lived on a busy street with lots of cars cruising by. And my parents, years before, had planted this big hedge to drown out some of the noise from the cars. And my dad would get the idea to trim the hedge every few months, but he wouldn't tell me and my brother. He would just wake us up at 5 a.m. on a Saturday after, as teenagers, we were out a little too late the night before. And he'd come down the hall banging on the bedroom doors. Let's go, troops, everybody up. Let's go, we're trimming the hedge today. My brother and I would stumble out in the front yard, weary-eyed, ready for the all-day endeavor of trimming the hedge. You have to picture this. To trim the hedge, my dad would wear Bermuda shorts, a white tank top undershirt, white tube socks with red, white, and blue stripes pulled up to his knees, and a red, white, and blue headband. And all day he'd stand out there on the ladder trimming the hedge with all these cars flying by. And my brother Tom and I knew on Monday it was going to be awful because we're going to get all this grief from our friends about how dad was dressed working on the hedge. I don't know if you ever had a mom or a dad who embarrassed you, but it was pretty embarrassing for us. But my dad hustled, whether it was trimming the hedge or taking care of his patients in his medical practice, he hustled. And I learned that from my dad. I hustled my way to playing college basketball at 5'9". I hustled my way to build our business with Mimi over the last 22 years. Can you hustle a little bit more in parts of your life? The second way my dad lived his life is he took care of his team. So as Timothy mentioned, he was in the South Pacific in a combat zone during World War II. He went over as an X-ray technician. He worked his way up to the rank of sergeant, and he ended up scrubbing in on the meatball surgeries, helping save the lives of the soldiers over there in the South Pacific. One high-ranking surgeon, a lieutenant colonel, actually took a liking to my dad, so he would have my dad scrub in on all his surgeries. The war ended, and even though the war ended, there were still a lot of surgeries because of booby traps and skirmishes with the Japanese, because a lot of the Japanese didn't know the war was over. They didn't have smartphones in those days. So there were still a lot of surgeries, and my dad was doing that. Well, his unit decided to throw a party. So they sent a private off to get alcohol. And unfortunately, when the captain called the unit together and asked my dad, all present and accounted for, the private wasn't back. My dad knew what would happen to that private if he told the truth, so he fibbed. And he said, yes, sir. Well, the captain figured out that my dad had not told the truth. And this was a by-the-book military man. So even though the war was over, he decided to court-martial my dad. The next day, my dad's scrubbing into surgery with a lieutenant colonel. He said, "Sir, this may be the last day I scrub in with you." And the lieutenant colonel said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, the captain is court-martialing me." The lieutenant colonel screams across the medical tent, "Bring me the phone!" And they come over with the crank phone. "Get me the captain on the horn." They get the captain on the horn, hand the phone to the lieutenant colonel. Lieutenant colonel says, "What is this I hear about you trying to court-martial Sergeant Dew? Cut it out. I need him in surgery, damn it." And slammed down the phone. And that was the end of the attempted court-martial of my dad. But whether it was in World War II or in his medical practice, my dad always took care of his team. And now in our wealth planning business, we're up to 10 on our team. And Mimi and I both know we have to take care of our team. Can you take a little bit better care of your team? The third way my dad lived his life is he was disciplined. So when he retired, he got really into health and fitness. And just to give you an example, his cardiovascular routine was 3 days a week for exactly 32 minutes in an exact heart zone. He would have 1 glass of red wine a night, not 1 1/4, not 1 1/2, never 2, always exactly 1. My dad lived with discipline. And I learned that from my dad. I work out 6 days a week and I almost never miss. Could you use a little bit more discipline in your life?
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video, and I want to let you know that I have a new book that's come out, and if you'd like to get it absolutely free, there's a link below in the description, or you can wait till the end of this video, or you can simply go to joesfreebook.com and you can get a copy there.
The fourth thing my dad did in living his life is my dad was careful with money. So when I was 16, I had the privilege of driving the family's 1972 Chevy Impala. And it was brown and it was ugly. It was an old beater, but I was grateful to have it. Our cars sat out in the sun because we didn't have a garage. We didn't have a carport. And after a while, the sun cracked the dashboard on the Impala in many places. So my dad took it down to the dealership to get a quote. My dad did not like the quote from the dealership. 2 weeks later, he comes into the house, very excited, and he says to me, "I fixed the Impala." I said, what do you mean, Dad? You fixed the Impala? "Yeah, the dashboard. I fixed the dashboard in the Impala." That always scared us because my dad was not good at fixing things. So quickly, I ran out to the car to see what had happened. And sure enough, my dad had fixed the dashboard on the Chevy Impala. What he did is he went down to the carpet store, bought a piece of shag carpet, and he super glued it on the dashboard. What my dad didn't know is when I was going to high school in Tucson, Arizona in the 1980s, there were a lot of Hispanic and Latino kids would create these lowriders. So they would take cars like Chevy Impalas, drop them low, they'd hang dice in the rearview mirror, and they would put carpet glued on the dashboard. So I got harassed all the time in high school for trying to be a lowrider, even though I didn't look like a lowrider. So that was a lot of grief my dad brought on with me. But my dad was careful with money. And I learned that from my dad. So every December, Mimi and I ask ourselves a simple question. How much more are we going to save and invest in the coming year than we did in the last year? And that one question has made all the difference. Could you be a little bit more careful with your money? And the fifth way my dad lived his life is he was the best at what he did. About 12 years ago, Mimi and I were at a memorial for a friend who unfortunately had passed away. And I bumped into an old friend of mine, Larry Seal. And Larry said, "You have to come meet my mom because your dad was my pediatrician and he was my brother's pediatrician." So he walks me over to his mother and he says to his mom, "Mom, this is Jim, Dr. Dew's son." She gives me this huge bear hug and she holds me for what seems like 2 minutes. She lets me go and she has tears in her eyes. And she looks deep into my eyes and she says to me, "Your father saved my son's life." And I said, "This goofball Larry?" And she said, "No, my other son." It turns out my dad had diagnosed something that was very rare and very hard to diagnose. And he caught it very early. And that saved her son's life. And as I think about my dad's legacy and all the kids he saved, and the kids those kids had, and the kids those kids are going to have, it's hard to measure the impact he's had on the world. When I think about my dad, I think about being the best financial advisor I can be, being the best husband I can be. Can you be a little bit better at some of the things that you do? So my dad's 5 life lessons. Number 1, hustle. Number 2, take care of your team. Number 3, live with discipline. Number 4, be careful with money. And number 5, be the best at what you do. Isaac Newton said, if I've seen further than others, it's because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. And I'm thankful and I'm grateful that I get to stand on my dad's shoulders. And in some small way, after my talk today, maybe you can stand on his shoulders too. If you lost someone you loved, just think of this. They're always with you in your heart and in your head when you think of them. And I think of my dad a lot. I love you, Dad.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask you is what's up next for you? I heard you say, you might have a title for your next book, or with your family, with your faith, with your books, with anything. What is up for you and how can we support you?
I appreciate that. So I'm on sabbatical right now. I took a sabbatical for the summer, Joe Polish style, except he did it right. I fell into it and realized I wasn't prepared and that I should have talked to Joe ahead of time. But during the summer, I decided, hey, when my kids are not in school, or when my kids are, when they're not in school, I'm not working. And so this was the first few months I did a sabbatical with them. And then now that they're back in school, I'm still extending the sabbatical just where I can kind of work on stuff without pressure. So I don't have a team right now. I don't have anyone that I have to answer to. This is like the first interview I've done in probably 3 months. So shows how much I love Yuli and Genius and wanting to contribute wherever I can. But yeah, for me, it's my family. We just moved onto 30 acres. We want to be self-sufficient and be able to grow our own food and take care of ourselves. And so that's been, I have shied away from manual labor my entire life. And now I'll work 7-hour days, digging ditches, building structures, and I'm loving it. It's such a form of meditation I'm just totally present. I'm not stressed about all the 20 different things in my business. I just got to build this wall right now, and making sure this nail is properly placed requires 100% of my presence and focus and attention. So that's been a really beautiful shift, is just to focus on living on the land and being present and building with my family. I've got my wife's stepfather and her dad are here. It's just a big family event. And anyway, so that's been a lot of fun. And I just want to keep my family number one. I think that for a long time I was a businessman with a family. And now I want to be a family man with a business. And I feel like I've really, this last year or so, I've really leaned further and further into that. And and to me, I think for all of us entrepreneurs, if you ask what was most important, I think that most of us would say family. But if you then ask to say, hey, can I see your schedule? I think that most entrepreneurs, you'd look at it and go, well, wait a minute, I thought family was most important. Why do you work all the time and you carve out an hour a day for the family and maybe a little bit on the weekends? But then you sometimes, for me, at least in the past, I would throw, hey guys, sorry, this Saturday, I've got a book launch coming up. So I can't, I got to work. And, can you take the kids, sweetheart? And I just think that's bullshit. And I think that, if we're doing this for our family, we need to be with our family. It's not about doing it for some point in the future. My daughter's 12 now. My son is 9 and she's 12 going on 17. And for those of you that have grown kids, you always hear that it goes by so fast. And when your kids are little, you're like, nah, we got so much time. But yeah, I think for all of us, really get clear on what matters most to you, whether it's your family or it's your health or it's both or something else. And make sure that your schedule tells the story of your priorities. Make sure your schedule tells the story of your priorities. And for me, it's I will only work while my kids are in school, and I will not work when they are not in school. And that goes for holidays. It goes for, I pick them up every day at 3 p.m. It goes for, for summer vacations. It goes for the weekends, all of it. If they have a play, like, that is my number one priority. And it just feels good when you live in alignment with that and health and family. Those are my top two, and just making sure I'm living in alignment. That's the future. And professionally, the Miracle Morning movie came out in December. That is still like, I feel the Miracle Morning, the movie and the book and the series, it's really still my North Star. Like, everything I do is in alignment with reaching 1 billion people. We've reached 3 million people, which is great. But if we want to elevate the consciousness of humanity, I feel like 1 billion is going to be the tipping point, or at least close to it. So I have a lot of work to do, and the rest of my life to do it.
You have some people in here who want to help you for sure. And 300 million's right on the way to 1 billion. You're on your way.
Yeah.
I will say on the calendar thing, I learned a long time ago, when you do your calendar, to color code it. So even my daughter has her own color, which is purple. And then I could see how much time am I spending with her. And green is making money, and blue is at the gym, and whatever it is. So if you color code it, you could look at the month and see how well it's balanced. Cameron, I actually want to ask Nick Sonnenberg, do you have anything you want to add to that? Because you are the king at making sure we manage our calendars properly. But if you have something to add, I want to have you up here at the end, okay? Anything else that we want to ask Hal before we tune off? Because this is such an honor to have you with
Randy,
us.
I had a quick question.
Hi, Randy.
Hi, how are you? Hal, I have read your book a long time ago. It was very instrumental in helping me change the way I started my days and the way I looked at things. And I was curious, where did you decide to move?
So I was living in Austin, and we just moved like 40 minutes outside of Austin.
Okay, so just out in the country, basically. From where you were.
Close enough to the city and the airport that we're not too much outcast, but so just a little bit outside the city.
I'm proud of you for making super good choices so young in life. I raised 5 kids with my wife, and there's just nothing better than having close relationships when you're older with your kids. I've seen so many families I've dealt with where there was somebody in the family that there was no relationship with the kid, and then they don't want the grandkids to see the parents either. And it's it is nightmare, let me tell you. So this is the way you save those relationships. You invest in them when you're young. Yeah. And you prioritize so they know you're important to them.
Yeah, Randy, thank you for that.
I think business. It helps in business. This helps in business too. Scott Donald was actually just telling me a story last night where he had to cancel an appointment with someone because something happened where he could be with his son at his school. And when he called the person back a couple hours later and said, I'm really sorry, I had to cancel, I had to be at my son's school, that person said, I want to do business with you more because you get the priorities in life. So I'm glad you're sharing this because we all need to hear it. One of the things I got to do earlier, about a year ago, Jim Dew and I got to spend some time with Magic Johnson. And we talked to Magic Johnson about how do you run multi-billion-dollar companies and stay happy? And he says every August, he takes the entire month off. He rents a yacht. He has 4 weeks. 1 week is with his family. 1 week is with other couples. 1 week is with his wife. And 1 week is with his friends. But he's running multi-billion-dollar companies. He's taking that month sabbatical. Everyone knows he's there. And he set it up so his family is first. And I think you've learned the same thing. But here he is running multi-billion-dollar companies and showing us it's important to take time and make your family first. So thank you for sharing that, Hal. Cameron, did you want to add anything else? No? Okay. Because you're getting ready to change your life a lot, and you're creating Miracle Mornings. So you're like an example for me of how to pay attention. I would love you to, because I'm sure Hal would love to hear it too. Hal, I'm going to have Cameron back up here because he's in transition in his life, creating new Miracle Mornings. And if he doesn't mind sharing, I'd love him to.
So I'm skinny. I'm down 40 pounds from my peak. So something I'm doing, and I talked about this in the Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs, was I often suck at my mornings. They're often not the best part of my day, and I work hard at that. And I wanted people to realize that just because we try to practice the morning savers, don't beat yourself up if you get 2 or 3 days in and you haven't done it. Start again, like tomorrow's a new day. But one thing I've done about prioritizing family, like Hal's doing, is I've now had 11 weeks vacation this year since January. I've already had 11 weeks off. I talked to my team because I felt guilty about it a month or two ago, and they said, no, we're really engaged. We love that you're still working it and driving it forward, and the company's growing like crazy. Tomorrow, my girlfriend and I leave for Italy. We'll be living there for the next 6 weeks. We've sold everything in Arizona. I'm giving back my green card in November, so we're completely unplugging. I haven't worked a night after 5:30 or a Saturday or Sunday in 7 years. So not a single night after 5:30 or a Saturday or Sunday in 7 years. When we get to Italy on Monday, I will only be working 1 o'clock till 7 o'clock, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Italy time. No Thursdays, no Fridays, no Saturday, no Sundays. We've got the entire business delegated or set up to be able to do that now and continuing to scale. But I just don't compromise that stuff. And then the time with my kids, I was just offered a big speaking event, but it's the day that I'm flying back from Italy to see my one son in Montreal. I said no to the speaking event, and the guy's scrambling going, but we need you. And I said, no, I'm spending time with my son. And he goes, I'll tell you what, I'll shift my event in November. Can you do it the day before? I'm like, yeah, we can make that happen. So like to Lee's point, but I think if you have to keep that priority and really focus on it, most of us are lying to ourselves when we say that we're just trying to catch up. Right? When you're working at night to try to catch up, or you're working at weekend to try to catch up, we'll never catch up. Because as soon as we catch up, we're going to have bigger goals. We'll buy another company, we'll expand more, we'll start another business. So you're not catching up. You're avoiding your spouse, you're avoiding your kids, you're avoiding your insecurities, your pain, and you're getting the dopamine rush from working. So just try to find it in some other place. So that's all I'm doing.
Thank you. That's so valuable. Thank you. He's moving to Italy tomorrow. Do you guys hear that?
Thank you, Cam.
That's
Well said,
designing
brother.
your life. Did you know he was moving to Italy tomorrow, or is this news for you,
this
Hal?
is the first I've heard of it.
I wanted him to tell you because I know you're so close, but I mean, that's a big deal, right? That's a big deal.
You are the doctor of the future, and I'm going to show you 6 ways that you can activate your inner healer. This is going to be powerful information that you're going to be able to apply immediately. Did you know that you can reverse aging on demand? Did you know that you can rebalance your hormones in minutes, not in months? And did you know you can heal every cell, organ, tissue, and system in your body simultaneously? In fact, that's the only way that you can heal them, is in unison all together. I know it sounds hard to believe, but health doesn't have to be complicated, overwhelming, or expensive to get rapid, safe, and permanent results. And I know it sounds crazy because we've heard it takes forever, costs lots of money, and you must take tons of supplements. Today, I'm going to show you how to get even better results in less time while improving your health like never before. And pay attention, because what you'll learn today is going to be powerful. And you'll learn how Faisal lost 19 pounds and no longer has bloating or hot flashes in 6 weeks. She literally looks like her daughter in this picture because of the transformation that took place. You'll learn how Suk lost 66.2 pounds, got off of his diabetes and blood pressure medications in 10 weeks. You'll learn how Michael stopped taking 10 Tylenol per day, lost 58.4 pounds, all in 10 weeks, all without supplements, lab testing, or intense exercise. As Tim mentioned, my name's Sachin Patel, is my lovely wife, Deepa, and the reason I live each and every day to the fullest is my son, Devin, who's 11 now. So my goal is to leave a better future for him and all of your children and grandchildren. My story starts in 1997 when my girlfriend at the time's friend called me skinny. And looking back, I was actually at a healthy weight, but these words scarred me and led me on this downward spiral of just doing whatever it took to gain as much weight as I possibly could so I'd never be called heavy. I went from 140 pounds or so all the way up to 185 pounds. And my goal was to get to 200 because I never wanted to hear those words ever again. At age 32, after I got married, you can see a picture of me here. I was about 185 pounds. And now this is me at age 44, totally transformed. And in fact, based on recent blood work I had, I've reversed my biological age by about 4 years. So this is entirely possible for me and therefore entirely possible for you. I'm going to share this formula today. Functional medicine, positive mindset, wearable technology, and self-love truly transformed my life. And that's why I'm going to share this with you today. I've written a book called Perfect Practice. I have a podcast by the same name. I'm an award-winning clinician. We run an award-winning business. We've built orphanages, schools, and food banks. And I'm also an award-winning father and soon to be the CEO of Canada's first publicly traded longevity company. Now, in the next few minutes, I want to show you a revolutionary approach that we've spent the last 3 years developing. So pay close attention because this literally could change everything for you, but more importantly, it could change everything for someone that you love and deeply care about. I'm going to share with you the 6 rights to activate your inner healer so that you can create sustainable health practices, rapid measurable changes, and a living legacy of health. Most importantly, I'm going to show you how you can become your own best doctor. This is the $1 trillion secret that Tim mentioned. And all this so that you can finally get to the root cause of what ails you and reverse any condition on demand. You can reduce the risk of hospitalization from COVID. Right now, the top 5 reasons for COVID hospitalization are 100% preventable and 100% reversible using what I'm going to share with you today. And you can better leverage your time, money, and efforts, and easily, depending on how old you are, add 1 to 25 quality years to your life. A fun fact is if you lived 1% longer, that'd be about 280 days. And I know we all know someone who lived an extra 280 days so they could be around a little bit longer. So we can give them one more hug or one more kiss or have one more conversation. And at some point that will be us. And I want to show you how to extend your life in a proven way starting today. So I know you're probably thinking, I've tried everything. Being healthy is hard. I've already spent so much money and nothing seems to work. Getting healthy takes years. I don't want to take any more supplements. You should see the garbage bags that people bring into our office. I've spent thousands on testing. I don't want to starve myself. I don't want to take drugs or hormone replacement medications. And my body's been like this for years and it won't budge. You know, we worked with over 5,000 clients and we hear almost all of these things on a weekly basis. But most importantly, people think being healthy is expensive. And maybe this might be hitting home for some of you, but some of you might be in a position where you might think that one more program and my spouse is going to kill me. So I want you to suspend all your limiting beliefs and hear me out. If you're ready to become the most productive, creative, energetic, and healthy version of you, then let's go through these 6 rights. But sit back and enjoy. I've actually created an extended guide of what I'm going to share with you that goes into more detail, so you don't have to write anything down. Number 1, mind right. So why do we need to get our mind right? Well, first of all, our mind is a 5-dimensional printer. It prints our reality. Our most persistent thoughts become our reality. Where the mind goes, the body follows. And we all know that thoughts become things. Some tips to get your mind right. 1 is to find your community. So being in Genius Network helps us shift every single month that we connect into the right mindset. You want to optimize your environment because we know, as Benjamin Hardy would say, that willpower doesn't work. And we have to be sold on ourselves before we can be sold on anything else. I want you to stop watching the news, especially right now, mindfulness, meditation, and spend more time in nature. These are ways that you can optimize your mindset. Number 2, I want you to breathe right. This is very overlooked, low-hanging fruit. So why breathe right? Well, first of all, it normalizes your blood pressure, which is the number 1 cause of a hospitalization right now. Number 2, it reduces the stress response. So we can actually modulate the stress response, not just based on how we think, but actually how we breathe. It also improves lymphatic drainage. Almost all disease starts in the body's sewage system, which is the lymphatic system. It also enhances creativity. Believe it or not, breathing correctly improves creativity. You will also wake up more refreshed. And a few tips to breathe right. 1 is you want to have proper oral posture. Your tongue should be in the correct position in your mouth in order to optimize your breathing. 3/4 of the tongue should be at the roof of the mouth with the tip of the tongue just behind the front teeth, gently positioned. Your tongue is actually a postural muscle. It will relax the muscles in the back of your neck and shoulders because it actually holds the front of your head up. So that positioning of the tongue will force you to breathe through your nose. Nasal breathing has many countless benefits, which you'll learn more about in the videos I'm going to send to you. And one way to ensure that you breathe through the nose is by taping your mouth closed at night. This might sound strange or might sound really weird, but trust me, it works. It can be transformational. We have so much data and evidence to prove this. Number 3 is I want you to light right. And what does that mean? Why should we light right? Well, we get deeper sleep when we expose ourselves to the right type of lighting. It lowers our cortisol. Believe it or not, artificial lighting at certain color temperatures will raise our cortisol. It increases dopamine when we get sunlight, especially in the morning. We improve our immune health by things like vitamin D production and also by enhancing melatonin production. It also helps us balance our hormones. And I'll show you in just a moment how to do that. So here's a diagram that shows the rhythm of melatonin and cortisol. So many of us think of melatonin and we think of a sleep hormone. In fact, melatonin is your most important immunomodulating hormone. So if you want to improve immune function, you want to increase melatonin production, not just take it, but you want to improve production. And the way we improve melatonin production is by lowering cortisol, but also by exposing ourselves to complete or as much darkness as possible. And natural lighting, such as candle lighting Red lighting or even campfires will not decrease melatonin production. Artificial lighting and overhead lighting will decrease it by up to 40%. Cortisol is another hormone that's driven by the rising and setting of the sun. Cortisol is highest in the morning. And so getting sunlight in the morning is so important to jumpstart our body. And sunlight in the morning also increases dopamine. So you want to get morning sunlight, turn off overhead lighting in the evening after the sun goes down, and use uplighting instead. Use red bulbs in the evening and wear blue and green blockers after sunset. And you could definitely connect with Dave Asprey on this. Number 4 is move right. Why move right? Better mood, improves lymphatic drainage, enhances creativity, better balance, fewer injuries, and a deeper appreciation of our physical body. We were meant to move. You can ask Whitney Jones how well we were meant to move. Joyful movement is what you want to do. You want to pick activities that you love doing. This morning, my wife and I went on a beautiful bike ride because I love this time of year. And we just spent time in nature, breathing in the fresh air, soaking in the sun. You want to stack activities with being in the sun, and you want to move throughout the day. So move every time we have a break, get up and move around and tune into your breath. You're only as good as your breath. Just like when you exercise, you're only as good as your form. However, when you move, you're only really as good as how well you're breathing. So make sure you're breathing correctly. Number 5, sleep right. Why sleep right? Better cognition, creativity, fewer cravings, less belly fat, more energy, better detox, and deeper healing. When you don't sleep right, you will feel hungry all the time and you will never feel satisfied thanks to 2 hormones, ghrelin and leptin. So sleeping well will curb your appetites and you'll feel more satiated. Sleep tips. So first of all, know your chronotype. You can check out Michael Bruce's book, The Power of When. Be consistent with your sleep and wake cycle. No light or food 2 to 3 hours before bed. You could even incorporate the lights out challenge. No lighting after the sun goes down, and watch your sleep transform in just a day or 2. Sleep in complete darkness in a cool room, and get an Aura ring to track your actual sleep metrics so you can see if your most powerful healing tool, sleeping, is actually giving you the healing powers that it needs. Number 6, really quick, digest, better immune health, improve nutrient absorption, less need for supplements, less chronic inflammation. You'll eat the right amount and no more stinky farts. Digestion tips: choose your food, your feelings, and the timing of your meals appropriately. Chew each bite, chill out, cherish each meal, check your stool daily and annually. This will be transformational for your overall health. So in review, the 6 rights: mind right, breathe right, light right, move right, sleep right, digest right, so you can age like this beautiful human being that we all love and care about, Mr. Joel Weldon. And you could be skiing and you could be doing all the fun things that life has to offer at any age. I promise you that these 6 rights will never steer you wrong. And they are available to you in this very moment and from this very moment forward. These are life skills that will last you a lifetime. My gift to you, and Eunice and the team will share this with you, is a guide that goes deeper into each of these topics so that you can dive in and learn more and share with your family. I invite you all to love yourself back to life. I love you. And here's to your highest, happiest, and wholest healing. Thank you.
Okay. It is wonderful to be here at Genius Network and see all of your shining faces. So everyone in the room here is an optimizer. So let's take a moment and imagine your perfect way of being in the world. Maybe for you, your perfect way of being is calm and in control. You're planning, you're organizing, you're in control of your day in your mind. Or maybe your perfect way of being is compassionate. You're caring, you're empathetic, you're listening. When you have a conversation with somebody, you want them to feel like the only person in the room. Or maybe your perfect way of being is maximally productive. You are laser focused on what needs to get done. You do what's important and you do it in less time every day. So all these ways of being are amazing, but we're not all these ways every day. What if there was a technique that could help you get there each and every day? And there is. It's called meditation. So most people think that meditation is just kind of letting your mind go blank. It's not. Meditation is a practice or a training that leads to healthy and positive mind states. Sounds pretty good, right? Practice that leads to a healthy mind. There are lots of different forms of meditation. The most basic one is a focused attention on the breath. In focused attention on the breath, you focus your attention on your breath, your mind wanders, which all our minds do, you notice it and you bring it back to your breath. So you focus on your breath, your mind wanders again, you notice it wanders, and you return it to a neutral object. This very simple thing has profound impact. So the first thing you notice when you start to do this exercise is that you can take your mind off of your thoughts, which are often negative, repetitive, and stressful, and put them on a neutral object. This is huge. You can actually have control over your mind. Most people just sort of feel like every day your mind has stuff going through it, and it's kind of thinking you. But with meditation, you learn that you can have control over the contents of your mind. You can get off the thought train. And once that happens, something really amazing happens. If you recognize that you have control over your mind and the contents of it, you can also make decisions about what's in it, and you don't need to be defined by it. You realize that you are not your thoughts. And so all those stories that you may have about yourself and what you're capable of and what your limitations are in the world around you, those can go out the window. You can make the choice about what's inside your head. And then you realize the same thing can happen with your emotions. If you feel an emotion, it would in the past trigger an uncomfortable thought, which triggers more uncomfortable feelings. With a meditation practice, you realize that you can get off the emotional roller coaster. That rather than having a feeling and having it rule you, you can simply experience it as a sensation, let it rise and let it fall, and not give it the attention to control your life. So, as an example, you are an employee, and maybe you just made a big mistake at work. Your boss starts walking up to you, and you feel your heart rate starting to raise, and your breath is getting kind of shallow, and you don't realize it, and you're realizing you have all sorts of sensations of fear and shame and guilt, and this really sucks, these feelings, and so maybe you'll just blame your colleague so you don't have to feel this stuff. Well, if you have a longer-term meditation practice, you can begin to start to work with those feelings, and as they start to arise, not be ruled by them, not be triggered by them, and then make a more appropriate choice in that scenario.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video, and I want to let you know that I have a new book that's come out, and if you'd like to get it absolutely free, there's a link below in the description, or you can wait till the end of this video, or you can simply go to joesfreebook.com and you can get a copy there.
Another place where meditation has fantastic impact is in your productivity. So you may not realize it, but every time your mind wanders off task, you're actually micro-procrastinating. Each and every one of those little mind wanders is actually something that's sucking up time from your precious day. So one of the things that I noticed when I started meditation practice is I got incredibly efficient. Early on, I had a long format essay to do, and I was the boss of a company. We sat in an open office. Everything was distracting me because everybody's problem was my problem too. So I was writing this long format essay, which normally took me a few hours, and everything was distracting me. But once I started a meditation practice, those long format essays just became really efficient because each of those distractions, I could say, nope, don't care, back to the task at hand. You're a distraction, don't care about you, back to the task at hand. And I finished one of those things in 45 minutes. So all of these great benefits that we've discussed, improved productivity, better emotional responsiveness, they actually have corollary changes in your brain. Meditation makes real change in your brain. So let's dive into our brains to find out how. So let's start at the top. One of the first ways that meditation can change your brain is it affects your prefrontal cortex. Fantastic news, we have this area at the front of your head called your prefrontal cortex. It's our attentional control center. It helps us plan, it helps us process and organize. It's amazing. Bad news, as you age, your prefrontal cortex thins. Good news, if you're able to maintain a long-term meditation practice, you may maintain the thickness of your prefrontal cortex as you age. In one study, a 50-year-old long-term meditator had the prefrontal cortex thickness of a 23-year-old. Meditation can also help you downregulate your amygdala. So if you remember in that example with the employee, when his physiology was flying all over the place, well, that was his amygdala in hyperdrive. Meditation helps you actually calm and downregulate your amygdala so you can calm and manage your body's emotional responses. Meditation also can increase the volume of your hippocampus, the side of your brain right there, right in the middle. Your hippocampus is the area responsible for learning and memory. And who couldn't use more learning and memory in their life? Meditation also impacts your temporal parietal junction. Why does that matter? Well, your TPJ is an area responsible for compassion empathy, and perspective taking. And a meditation practice actually impacts that area of your brain. Meditation can also, and this is the coolest one to me, 8 weeks of meditation can increase the density of your gray matter. Why is that meaningful? Well, Einstein had more gray matter than the average individual. Just saying. So if all of these things are so amazing, why don't more people meditate? We saw that only a portion of you do it, and the ones that do it, fantastic, but the ones that don't, why not? Or why do you start meditating and then you stop? Well, it turns out that meditation is actually hard to do. There's no one sitting inside the black box of your mind to tell you what you should be doing in there or to guide you and coach you. And we wanted to change that. So we set about a few years ago to create a tool called Muse that would actually give you real-time feedback on your mind during meditation, so you could know what was going on in there, when you were focused and when your mind was wandering. As you heard, it's been used by over millions of sessions, hundreds of companies and institutions. And then we stood back and we said, we want to really ramp this up. We want to build something new. And today, for the very first time on stage, I'm going to present to you Muse 2. It's a beautiful, slim little device, slips on just like a pair of glasses. It has sensors that track your mind and your body during meditation to give you real-time feedback to start, deepen, and enhance your practice. So those of you who know Muse 1 will know that Muse 1 had EEG sensors to track your brain during meditation. Muse 2 adds sensors that track your body, your breathing, and your heart to give you real-time feedback on your brain and body to guide you into a deeper practice. So Muse's body sensors track your body's movements to guide you into stillness and to help you find a pain-free posture for meditating. For a lot of people, this is the first place to start. Muse 2's breath sensing technology tracks each and every one of your breaths and guides you in breathing exercises to calm yourself or to energize yourself. Within this very same device, there's also a heart sensor that tracks the beating of your heart and gives you real-time feedback on it. It's a beautiful experience. It's not simply a number on your wrist. You actually hear the sound of your heart translated every beat into the beat of a drum so that you can tap into your heart's rhythm and learn what helps you calm it. Our classic brain feedback, still in this device, actually lets you know what your brain is doing during meditation. Gives you real-time feedback so you hear when your mind is wandering and when you're focused. The metaphor we use is your mind is like the weather. So when you're thinking, distracted, you hear it as stormy, and it guides your brain into calm. So not only is there real-time feedback that actually guides you into an ability to harness and hone and calm your brain and your body, but there's also data. All this rich, beautiful data that's actually showing you what your brain and body is doing so that you can understand it, track it, and improve it. It's like having a little coach right inside this device. So meditation is amazing, but you need to actually build a daily practice. So we have a motivational architecture in there that helps you build a practice and even lets you schedule your meditations. Because meditation really is amazing. It's one of the best things you can do in your life. But so few people actually do it. And in order to get this benefit, you need to actually do it each and every single day. It's like going to the gym. You go to the gym for your body, you go to the gym for your mind. And when I asked Joe, why does he meditate every day? What are the benefits that he experiences? He said that meditation helps me respond versus react. So you owe it to your mind and your body to teach it how to shift its responses so that you can live more productively, more compassionately, more happily, and so that you can make the choice of how you want to show up in the world every day.
Please help me welcome Mr. Ilko DeBoer.
Thank you so much, Timothy. So just a quick check. Do you see my screen? Do you see my PowerPoint presentation? Timothy.
We all see it online.
Oh, perfect. So that's that helps. So thank you. And so I got a question for everybody in the audience in Phoenix. I wish I was there, hopefully next year, and everybody online. It's a simple question, but it's a big question. And the question is, what is most important for you? And an even bigger question is, does this actually align with your actions and your behavior? So what's usually most important for us is, for example, our family, or our relationship, or our parents, or our business, or our health, or our friends, and obviously ourselves as well. However, if I look, for example, at my own case, my natural tendencies, they're different compared to what's most important for me. So for example, for me, I like to wake up and listen or watch anything business or personal development. I like to think about my business. I like to work. I like to walk. I like to spend my days in hotel lounges. I love to travel. I really love to be by myself. I like to read books. I love to grow, etc., etc. So in all honesty, if you noticed, my natural tendency is not to spend most of my time on what's most important for me. And more importantly, who is most important to me. It does not come natural to me to wake up and spend a lot of time with my children, to spend a lot of time with my parents, to go and have a lot of fun with my friends, or have a lot of quality time with my wife. There's a discrepancy between what's most important for me and my natural tendencies. So what's most important to me is not easy for me. And chances are, as an entrepreneur, it's not easy for you either. So what's most important, we're supposed to have to give it our quality time, but we don't. A lot of times we give it our leftover time. And because of this discrepancy, there's a disconnect. Life can feel a little bit off. You can have this nagging feeling of guilt, of shame, and it feeds the feeling of not being or doing enough. And this is not easy, and this is actually a big problem for a lot of entrepreneurs. Thankfully, there's a simple solution, and I call this the Freedom Framework. And this is a big fancy title for deciding for you what's most important for you, and also who is most important for you, and then schedule it and make it non-negotiable. So you don't need to think about it, and it becomes automatic. If you prioritize what's most important for you, and you make it non-negotiable, then you can lose yourself in whatever comes natural to you. For example, my mom obviously is definitely most important to me. We live 100 miles apart, and family is everything for my mom as well. When my mom was 10 years old, her mother died and her father wasn't in the picture anymore. She was raised by her 11 brothers and sisters. Fast forward 50 years later, she had 11 brothers and sisters, and there's only one sister left. So family is everything for her. And my family, me, my children, my wife, is everything for her as well. So 5 years ago, in all honesty, if you would ask me who's most important to you, obviously I would say my parents are most important for me. But if you would look at my actions, I would actually rate myself maybe a 5 out of 10. I always felt that I wanted to spend more time with my parents. I always had thoughts like, I gotta call my mom. Or, how long haven't we seen them? Or it hasn't been that long, right? But this was the reality. I gave them my leftover time instead of my quality time. It just didn't happen that often. And the worst part, for no real reason. I have plenty of time and I have plenty of freedom. It's just not my natural tendency. I'm in my own world. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm in this world.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video, and I want to let you know that I have a new book that's come out, and if you'd like to get it absolutely free, there's a link below in the description, or you can wait till the end of this video, or you can simply go to joesfreebook.com and you can get a copy there.
So, 5 years ago, I got a phone call from my mom. And this was actually a real conversation. She opened up and I opened up. And this conversation was very, very painful. Because deep down inside, I knew that she wanted to spend more time with my family and I wanted to spend more time with them. I rated myself a 5 out of 10. And this is not the level that I want to play at. This is average. I want to play with my most important relationship at a dream come true level. For the people that we love the most, because why would we settle? So I listened and I felt her pain. And this pain was also my pain, because this can hurt when you know that you're wrong. And I was 100% responsible for this. My mom, she is everything for me. And after this conversation, I had one thought. And the thought was the following. She had 11 brothers and sisters. She has one sister left. All the other brothers and sisters, they all passed. If something would happen to my mom, that would be my number one fear. And it is my number one fear. And if something would happen, I would have a hard time forgiving myself. And worst of all, it would have been completely unnecessary. So average, we don't go for average. We want to go for a dream come true level. And then I got a big personal breakthrough. And this is the birth of the freedom framework. What's most important to me and who is most important to me, I want to make it non-negotiable. So what I did, I made a plan and scheduled it for a full year and made it a dream come true. So for example, with my parents, I don't want to visit my parents for a couple of hours. I want to sleep at my parents' place. This is my home. This is where the place where my parents raised me. So I made the decision every month for years to come, I will put on my calendar every month, one Saturday, where I will stay at my parents' place and sleep at my parents' place with 1 or 2 or 3 of my children. And this changed everything for us. So here's the magic trick if you want to make this work. If you really want to make big steps in this, this is the magic trick. And this is super, super complex. This is genius level. And I hope that you can understand this, because this is super, super deep. Because once you figured out how and how often you want to see the people that you love the most, so you think for yourself, who are the people that I love the most? Then you go to your calendar and you figure out, like, how often do I want to see them? You put it on the calendar. And again, like what I'm going to share with you right now, your mind will be blown. This is the magic trick. If you do this, everything can change for you. This is what you do. You send a text. So in this case, I decided that this was most important for me. Regardless of what my wife wants, or regardless of what my kids want, I want to spend the time with my parents. So I go to the calendar, put 12 Saturdays on my calendar, and I made a commitment to my mom that I will come every month for a full night. I stay over with 1 or 2 or 3 of my children, or all of us if my wife wants to join. And if you know my mom, after I send that text, it's 100% non-negotiable. And here's the great part. I don't need to think about it anymore. This is guaranteed guilt-free, peace of mind. And this resulted in, instead of going to see my parents or visiting my parents, I am home, I sleep at my parents' place. Instead of going there and sitting in a chair, I just lay on the couch because it's my home. I'm relaxed, I am home. Instead of catching up with my parents, I just relax and I have fun. And this completely transformed the relationship with my mother, both of my parents, me and both of my parents, my kids and my parents, and my wife and my parents. And this has been a total blessing. And you can do this with anything or anybody that's most important to you. So not just anybody, also anything. So for example, health is important for a lot of us. For me, it's most important. My health is most important. But going to the gym doesn't come natural to me, AKA I just won't go. So what I do, I put it on the calendar. I have no discipline, so I need a trainer. And my trainer, he just left like 15 minutes ago or 30 minutes ago. This is a great rep. Check it out. Check it out. Yeah. Okay. Good. It's easy. I don't need to do anything because he's there 4 times a week. He shows up here in my man cave and we just train. And most of the time I don't feel like it, but I'm getting stronger and stronger and stronger. It's non-negotiable. It's a commitment to somebody else. So what else? One more example. My children, obviously my children are most important to me. So what's a dream come true level here? A dream come true here is make their dreams come true. So every 2 months, I go on a 1-night trip with one of my 3 children. So I go 6 times per year, a 1-night trip. A dream come true, for example, for my daughter, she wanted to build a bear. She wanted to go to London with me and build a bear. So we built a bear and we went to London and we built a bear. And these are memories for life. What else? For example, my wife, we've been together for 25 years last month. And we have an amazing relationship. And how come? It's very simple. Every 2 weeks, we book a hotel and we leave our kids. I mean, I love our kids, but I love to be with my wife without my kids. And again, for this as well, last week we went to Germany. In a month, we go to Miami and Jamaica. These are memories for life, and we make it non-negotiable. So the concept of the freedom framework is very simple. You decide what's most important to you and who is most important to you, and how often and what would be a dream come true level for you. You decide what's your perfect frequency. You grab your calendar, and then you decide like how often you want to see who. You put it on the calendar, and then you commit. This way, you don't need to think about it anymore. And this is very peaceful, actually. So chances are, freedom is your core value. For me, it's my core value. And in a way, this might look like it's limiting our freedom because you put all these things on your calendar. And in a way, it is. It is sort of limiting. But what you do is you invest your quality time in what and who's most important to you. And this is not always easy. Oftentimes, when you do these things, when I do the trips or go to my parents or whatever, it feels like the time isn't right. I'm busy. I got deadlines. I'm stressed out. But most of the time, it ends up being very joyful, rejuvenating, and fun. And there's a guaranteed connection, guaranteed love, and guaranteed happiness. And we need this as entrepreneurs. So knowing that you got what's most important to you covered, this frees up your mental bandwidth and actually increases the feeling of freedom. And because of your freedom framework, you can actually go all in on your natural tendencies. Could be your business, could be your mission, could be your purpose, whatever it is for you. Guilt-free, and you can actually enjoy your natural tendencies, and you can enjoy what's most important to you. And this is when life starts flowing again, and this is when life starts working for you. So January 1st of this year, I was on Curacao, which is a Dutch Caribbean island, and we're just enjoying my time. And then I got a text from my wife, and she was like, "Oh, can you please come to the room?" So I come to the room, and she tells me like, "Okay, you better sit down." And she never told me before that you better sit down. So I got another phone call from my mom, and my biggest fear came true. She was diagnosed on January 1st. She was diagnosed with breast cancer. And this was a big shock for all of us. And obviously we were very sad. My heart felt broken. But after we digested this information, strangely in a way, I felt at peace. Simply because I have no regrets. When I used to rate my relationship with my parents at 5 out of 10, now it's an 8 out of 10 or maybe a 9 out of 10. And it's all simply because I made the decision 5 years ago to make it non-negotiable to go see my parents and stay at my parents every month. I did not, when we got the news, I did not feel the need to catch up. I did not feel the need to spend more time with my parents. So in a way, there was peace. And obviously, I was worried and there were a lot of concerns. And then I remembered this great quote from Joe Polish. Any problem can be solved with the right Genius Network. I don't ask for help easily, but I go to the Facebook group of Genius Network and I just ask for support, whatever it is. And we got so many great videos, all videos of a lot of Genius Network member, all for my mom. And this was very, very amazing for my mom. And she was like, who are all these people? But she received all the blessings and all the prayers. And then we got this guy, we just saw him on stage, Andre. He didn't send 1 video or 2 videos or 3 videos. He just kept on sending videos. And he didn't just only send videos, he started sending flowers and more flowers. And then he started sending more flowers. And then every day he started sending flowers and 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 more flowers. And he just kept sending flowers. And my mom was like, wow, this is amazing. My mom met Andre. We spent time with my parents at their place when Andre was in Amsterdam. But my mom actually created a video for Andre, like, Andre, please stop sending flowers because it's too much. And Andre was like, okay, I'll stop sending flowers every day. I'll start sending flowers every week. And literally 2 days ago, my mom got flowers from Andre, all from January up until now. So that's amazing. So this is a 10-minute talk, and I decided to sneak in some extra seconds to say thank you to all of you. I mean, I'll take some extra seconds. Joe is not here anyway, so it doesn't matter. Timothy is going to retire, and I'm not going to make any jokes about Joel. But a big, big thank you to everybody that helped us. My mom felt carried, and I did too. So fast forward to July 7th of this year. This is my mom celebrating her birthday, and she is happy, she's healthy, and she is cancer-free. And yesterday I was on the phone with my mom, and this was her response when I told her that we canceled a trip to the Caribbean with Christmas and we'll spend Christmas together as a family. So in closing, most of us are achievers. You know, we want more, we want to grow, we want to expand, we want to go 10x. And I think that's amazing. I mean, this is an amazing group, but what we truly desire oftentimes is what we already have. It's already there. What's most important for us, it's already available. And more important, who is most important to us, is already available for us to enjoy. If you want to live a life in flow, then what we should do is prioritize what's most important for us and who is most important for us. And so we can enjoy our natural tendencies. We should do who we are. So this is my wish for you. And also this is a little bit of a challenge for you. And it's very, very simple. What I would suggest you to do after this event is take some time and decide for yourself who is most important for you. How often would you like to be with them? So think about the perfect frequency, then make it non-negotiable by scheduling it on your calendar and make it truly non-negotiable. So whoever you made that commitment to, write it out as a text and then send that text. Timothy.
Okay, I hope you found that video awesome and useful. So if you want to get a free copy of my book, I want you to click here. And if you want to watch some more videos that'll be useful and awesome, click here. Go ahead. They're over here. Do it now. Come on. Thank you. Watch them.